In Israel again this week, vowing to step up its bombardment of the Gaza Strip, warning Palestinians still in the north to flee south.
We have team coverage for you this morning. Let's go first to 9 correspondent Alison Petrowski on the ground in Israel. Ali, in breaking news this morning, an Israeli tank has accidentally fired at an Egyptian post.
Yeah, that's right, Sarah. Good morning to you. The IDF says this is an accident, but Egyptian border officials were injured by shell fragments after the Israeli tank fired at them. The IDF having to sheepishly take to Twitter a short time ago to apologise, expressing its sorrow, and says that they regret the incident, Sarah. Now, today we've seen Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu up on the northern border with Lebanon. Many fears, Sarah, that borderline could open up as a second front in this conflict. Netanyahu telling his troops that Hezbollah will be crippled if it made the mistake of its life by joining the Israel-Hamas war. Every day we have seen skirmishes up and down that border. In fact, it has escalated in the last 3 days, so much so that the Israeli government has actually put in a temporary evacuation order for 28,000 people living in those northern villages. Now, look, there are reports this evening that the United States is putting considerable pressure on Israel to hold off on a ground incursion, and the reason why they are doing this is because the United States believes that Hamas may be willing to let more hostages go. Over the weekend, we did see 2 American hostages, a mother and a daughter, Judith and Natalie Renan, released, and the US is confident that more could come. And we know that 210 hostages remain in Gaza, and guys, the Israeli Defence Force keeps telling us here on the ground that they believe most of them are still alive. And look, finally, on the Rafah crossing, that crucial land border between Egypt and Gaza, we have seen a second convoy make its way through that Rafah crossing today with humanitarian aid and not fuel. Good news, although it is just a drop in the ocean in terms of what aid is needed for people on the ground there. And we are still seeing foreign nationals amass at that border, hoping to make safe passage into Egypt. The Australian government is currently assisting 77 Australians, including permanent residents and immediate families who are stuck inside Gaza, guys.
Ali, thank you. Let's go live to US correspondent Lawrence Marcy in Washington, D.C. Lauren, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is en route to the US Capitol for critical talks with the President.
That's right, Carl, and there is certainly a lot of ground for Anthony Albanese to cover when he arrives here for a week of diplomacy and what is an official state visit. He will be sitting down with US President Joe Biden, and the two will, of course, cover the unfolding conflict, which is right now continuing to carry on. But there is a lot of other ground to cover, and that will include both of our countries' shared interests, and will also give the leaders an opportunity to address our shared challenges. That will include Joe Biden's push for funding on the AUKUS submarine program. Right now, he is lobbying for Congress to provide that funding, and Anthony Albanese will have the opportunity to meet with congressional leaders. Both Joe Biden and Anthony Albanese will also be discussing current global developments, and that comes at a time when America is right now advancing its posture within the Middle East, increasing its presence there. And just this morning, US Secretary of Defence Lloyd Austin saying he is concerned that the situation there will continue to expand.
What we're seeing is the prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and our people throughout the region. And because of that, we're going to do what's necessary to make sure that our troops are in the right, good position, they're protected, and that we have the ability to respond.
And just this morning, fresh reports that China has moved 6 warships into the Middle East this week. It is an increasing global tension and a time of increasing fury right around the world. Certainly a lot to address for Anthony Albanese when he arrives here in Washington, D.C. just after lunchtime today. Carl.
Lauren, thank you.
Breaking news back home, where there's been a wild chase across Sydney's west, coming to a crashing end hours ago. Let's go live to Jack Hahn at the scene in Ashfield for us this morning. Jack, what happened?
Well, it all started minutes before midnight, Brooke. Police were on patrol in the Five Dock area when they pulled over a black Nissan. While they were conducting checks on the car on the side of the road, it's alleged that the Nissan rolled back into them before speeding away. Officers giving in chase and calling in backup in the form of nearby highway patrol units, the Raptor Squad and Polair. At times during this pursuit, it's alleged that the Nissan clocked a staggering 140 kilometres an hour in a 60 zone on Parramatta Road. That's when the force thought it was far too dangerous to continue the pursuit on the ground, so they terminated it, leaving it up to officers watching on from Polair to keep an eye on what was happening. And it is alleged that they saw this car crisscrossing onto the wrong side of the road, at times even mounting footpaths. It took more than an hour for this wild run from the law to come to a crashing end here at the intersection of Parramatta Road and Liverpool Road in the suburb of Ashfield. Police were able to bring the driver into custody, but it's alleged that during the arrest, a struggle broke out with this 35-year-old. One officer sustaining a bite wound to his leg. He was taken to Westmead Hospital, while the driver is this morning under police guard at RPA. Brooke.
OK, thanks, Jack.
2 children are dead and 2 others are fighting for life after a horror fire in Victoria. Today, Melbourne reporter Isabel Stashkovsky is at the Royal Children's Hospital. Isa, this has rocked the community.
It certainly has, Carl. Good morning to you. Those 4 primary school-aged children were playing inside a shed at the back of a home at Corio, just near Geelong, where this blaze has somehow broken out, effectively trapping those 4 children inside. Tragically, 2 of them have died at the scene. The other 2 have been airlifted here to the Royal Children's Hospital, suffering from very severe burns and smoke inhalation. As you'd imagine, their family members have spent the night by their bedsides. This has really impacted the local tight-knit community there in Corio, as well as neighbours who tried to help and first responders.
It was very much a chaotic scene. For the sake of the families that are involved in the community, I think we owe it to them to find out what did take place and give them some answers.
Carl, it is understood that one of the mothers of at least one of the children was there present at the time. Arson squad members have spent the evening at that property combing through evidence, but at this stage it is unclear what actually sparked that blaze. But at this point, Carl, it has not been deemed as suspicious.
Isa, thank you.
An Adelaide mother of 2 has been killed and a man described as a close friend has been charged with her murder. Crystal Marshall's body was discovered by emergency crews responding to a fire at her home. It's believed the accused man, a 48-year-old, was living in the house at the time. A man is dead and several people have been held at gunpoint after a shooting rampage across Western Australia's wheatbelt. A group pulling over to help a crashed Holden Commodore sedan when police say they were shot at by a man and a woman who appeared to be from a nearby bush in Bannister, about 100 kilometres southeast of Perth. They escaped uninjured. However, the duo then carjacked a Volvo SUV. The ordeal coming to an end after the man turned the gun on himself. The woman arrested after fleeing from the car. Tropical cyclone Lola is right now closing in on Vanuatu, marking an early start to the season. The weather system forming in Fijian waters east of the Solomon Islands could strengthen to a Category 3, bringing gale force winds. It is expected to head southwest before weakening, avoiding the Queensland coast by 2,000 kilometres.